Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when everything around us seems ordinary, predictable, even disappointing. We wake up, follow our routines, carry silent burdens, and wonder if anything will ever truly change. We pray, we wait, we hope, and sometimes we grow weary in the waiting. But I want to remind you of a powerful truth today. God specializes in surprises, not small, temporary shifts, not fragile blessings that fade with time. I'm talking about divine interruptions that exceed your expectations and move far beyond the limits of your imagination. Too often we measure God by our circumstances. When doors close, we assume the answer is no. When delays stretch on, we think we have been forgotten. But God is not limited by what you see. He is not constrained by what you feel. While you are focusing on what is happening in front of you, He is arranging what is happening beyond you. He is aligning people you have not met, creating opportunities you have not considered, and preparing answers you have not yet prayed for. The truth is, God's plans are not reactionary. He is not scrambling to fix your situation. He has already gone before you, long before you face the disappointment, long before you shed the tears, long before you whispered that desperate prayer in the quiet of the night. He knew, and not only did He know, He made provision. He built a path. He designed a breakthrough. But here is what we must understand. Divine surprises often require deep trust. You cannot cling tightly to your own plan and fully receive God's greater plan. Sometimes the very thing you are holding on to is the thing that is limiting what He wants to give you. We pray for increase, but resist change. We ask for blessing, but fear uncertainty. Yet many of God's greatest surprises are hidden inside transitions. Think about the seasons of your life when you felt the most unsure. Those were not wasted seasons. They were preparation seasons. God was strengthening your faith, refining your character, and deepening your dependence on Him. A blessing without preparation can become a burden. But when God prepares you first, the blessing becomes sustainable, steady, and secure. You may be in a place right now where nothing makes sense. Perhaps you have been faithful, but the results seem small. Perhaps you have obeyed, but the reward feels delayed. Do not mistake silence for absence. God's silence is often the soil where your greatest miracle is taking root. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean there is no activity. Roots grow deep before fruit appears. One of the greatest barriers to experiencing God's surprises is doubt. Not loud doubt that openly denies Him, but quiet doubt that questions His timing. We say we believe, but in our hearts we wonder if He will really come through this time. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the decision to trust even when answers are incomplete. Faith says, I do not understand what you are doing, but I trust who you are. And who is He? He is faithful. He is sovereign. He is good. He is intentional. He does not overlook His children. He does not miscalculate. He does not forget. When He moves with purpose. When He blesses with precision. And when He surprises you, it will not be random. It will be perfectly timed. Sometimes we limit our expectations because we are trying to protect ourselves from disappointment. We think, if I don't expect too much, I won't be hurt. But God is not calling you to guarded expectation. He is calling you to bold faith. Not arrogance, not presumption, but confidence in His character. Confidence that He is able to do more than you can ask or think. Imagine what would happen if you truly believed that God was preparing something beyond your imagination. Your prayers would change. Your attitude would change. Your patience would deepen. Instead of complaining in the delay, you would worship in the waiting. Instead of fearing the unknown, you would anticipate it. There is something powerful about expectancy. When you expect God to move, you become spiritually alert. You notice His guidance. You recognize His opportunities. You respond to His prompting. Expectancy keeps your heart open and your spirit sensitive. But remember, God's surprises are not always packaged the way we assume. Sometimes the open door looks different than the one you requested. Sometimes the blessing comes disguised as a challenge. Sometimes the breakthrough begins with a disruption. Do not evaluate the beginning too quickly. What appears inconvenient may be the first step towards something extraordinary. God's ways are higher than ours. His perspective is eternal. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what you do not know. And when he orchestrates a surprise, it often connects details from your past, your present, and your future in ways only he could design. That conversation you almost avoided. That opportunity you nearly declined. That person you unexpectedly met. None of it is accidental in his hands. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. If you are breathing, God is still working. If you are waiting, God is still arranging. If you are praying, God is still listening. And if you are trusting, God is still preparing something that will exceed what you imagined possible. So remain faithful in the small things. Continue to obey when it is inconvenient. Keep your heart aligned with him. Because when the moment comes, and it will come, you will look back and realize that every delay had purpose, every disappointment carried direction, and every unanswered prayer was guiding you towards something greater. God is about to surprise you, not because you earned it, not because you demanded it, but because he delights in demonstrating his faithfulness. He delights in showing you that his provision is greater than your fear, his timing is wiser than your urgency, and his plans are larger than your dreams. The question is not whether God can do it. The question is whether you will trust him enough to wait for it. Hold steady. Stay rooted. Keep believing. What is ahead of you is not limited by what is behind you. And when God reveals what he has been preparing, you will understand that he was working all along, crafting a blessing far beyond anything you could have imagined. One of the greatest struggles in the life of faith is learning to trust what we cannot see. We are naturally drawn to what is visible, measurable, and immediate. We feel secure when we can trace the steps, predict the outcome, and calculate the results. But God does not operate within the boundaries of our limited perspective. He is always working beyond what we can see, beyond what we can measure, and beyond what we can comprehend in the present moment. When circumstances appear stagnant, it is easy to assume that nothing is happening. When prayers seem unanswered, we may quietly conclude that heaven is silent. Yet the absence of visible movement does not mean the absence of divine activity. In fact, so. Many of God's most significant work takes place in hidden places, beneath the surface of our understanding. Just as seeds grow underground long before they break through the soil, God's purposes often develop out of sight before they manifest in our lives. Consider how often we evaluate our situation based solely on present evidence. If the opportunity has not appeared, we think it does not exist. If the relationship has not improved, we assume it never will. If the breakthrough has not arrived, we conclude it is not coming. But God sees the full picture. He sees the connections you cannot see, the timing you cannot calculate, and the protection you may not even recognize. There are closed doors that were not punishments but protection. There are delays that were not denials but preparation. We must remember that God's perspective is eternal. He is not confined to the urgency of our schedule. What feels late to us is perfectly timed in his wisdom. What feels slow to us is carefully orchestrated in his sovereignty. When we focus only on the visible, we risk misunderstanding what he is doing. We may interpret a setback as failure when in reality it is a redirection. We may interpret a delay as abandonment when in truth it is alignment. Trusting that God works beyond what we can see requires surrender. It means releasing our demand for immediate explanations. It means accepting that we will not always understand the why behind every circumstance. Faith is not built on complete information. It is built on confidence in God's character. When you know that he is faithful, wise, and loving, you can rest even when the path ahead is unclear. There is also a refining process that takes place in hidden seasons when nothing visible is changing, something internal often is. Your patience is being strengthened. Your dependence on God is deepening. Your priorities are being clarified. These internal transformations are not secondary. They are essential. God is far more concerned with who you are becoming than with what you are achieving. And often the hidden work within you prepares you for the visible work He will do through you. It is important to understand that God's unseen work is intentional. He is not reacting to your circumstances as they arise. He is sovereign over them. Long before you encountered the challenge, He had already made provision. Long before the obstacle appeared, He had already designed a path through it. What surprises you does not surprise Him. What unsettles you does not surprise Him. What sometimes the most comforting truth is that God is connecting details you would never think to connect. A conversation from years ago, a skill you developed in a previous season, a disappointment that redirected your path. None of it is wasted. God weaves together experiences, relationships, and even setbacks into a design that serves His purpose for your life. You may only see isolated moments, but He sees the complete pattern. When you truly embrace the reality that God works beyond what you can see, your response to difficulty changes. Instead of reacting with panic, you respond with prayer. Instead of being consumed by anxiety, you choose trust. Instead of demanding immediate answers, you rest in the assurance that God is at work. This does not mean you will never feel uncertainty, but it means uncertainty will not control you. Living with this understanding also frees you from the pressure of trying to control every outcome. You were never meant to carry that burden. You are responsible for obedience. God is responsible for obedience. God is responsible for results. When you faithfully take the steps He places before you, you can trust Him with what lies beyond your vision. Your task is to remain faithful in what you know. His task is to handle what you do not. His task is to handle what once confused you. You will see how a closed door led you to a better opportunity. You will recognize how a painful ending protected you from a greater loss. You will realize that what felt like silence was actually strategic timing. In those moments, your faith will be strengthened because you will see evidence that God was working all along. Until then, you walk by faith, not by sight. You anchor your heart in the truth that God's unseen work is just as real as what you can touch. You choose to believe that even in the stillness, He is moving. Even in the delay, He is preparing. Even in the uncertainty, He is guiding. And as you continue to trust Him beyond what you can see, you position yourself to experience the fullness of what He has been faithfully preparing all along. There is a divine pattern woven throughout life that many people overlook. Preparation always precedes promotion. We often pray for elevation, for increase, for greater responsibility and wider influence. We ask God to open bigger doors, to entrust us with more, to bring us into seasons of abundance and visible success. Yet what we do not always recognize is that before God elevates you, He prepares you. Before He expands your territory, He strengthens your foundation. Before He releases greater blessing, He shapes your character to sustain it. Preparation seasons are rarely glamorous. They are usually quiet, sometimes uncomfortable, and often misunderstood. From the outside, it may appear that nothing significant is happening. You may feel overlooked, hidden, or even forgotten, but hidden seasons are not wasted seasons. They are sacred seasons. In those moments, God is working on the parts of you that the public will never see, but that will determine how you handle what the public does see. If promotion came without preparation, it could crush you. Influence without humility can lead to pride. Success without integrity can lead to compromise. Increase without wisdom can lead to mismanagement. God's preparation is not a delay tactic. It is an act of love. He prepares you because He intends for the blessing to last. He refines you because He desires for you to remain steady when the pressure increases. Often, preparation looks like repetition. Doing the small tasks faithfully, showing up consistently when no one applauds, maintaining integrity when no one is watching. It is in these ordinary routines that extraordinary character is formed. Faithfulness in the unseen builds strength for the seen. When you handle small responsibilities with diligence, you demonstrate readiness for greater ones. There are also moments when preparation comes through difficulty. Challenges reveal weaknesses that comfort would conceal. Trials expose areas where your faith needs strengthening. When you face opposition, you discover whether your confidence rests in circumstances or in God. These refining experiences are not meant to harm you, but to fortify you. Just as gold is purified through fire, your character is strengthened through testing. You may wonder why certain lessons seem to repeat in your life. Perhaps you encounter similar obstacles in different settings. Perhaps you find yourself dealing with familiar frustrations. Sometimes repetition is not punishment, it is preparation. God will not promote you beyond what you are prepared to handle. If a lesson remains unlearned, it may reappear until it is fully understood, not to discourage you, but to equip you. Preparation also involves aligning your motives. It is possible to desire promotion for the wrong reasons. You may seek recognition rather than responsibility, applause rather than accountability. In the quiet place of preparation, God searches your heart. He reveals hidden pride, misplaced priorities, and subtle fears. As He corrects and redirects you, your motives become purified. What once was driven by ambition becomes guided by purpose. One of the most difficult aspects of preparation is patience. Waiting can feel like stagnation. Watching others advance while you remain in the same place can test your contentment. But comparison is a distraction from your own process. God's preparation for you is unique. The timing, the lessons, the path, none of it is random. While someone else may appear to be ahead, you are being shaped according to a design specific to your calling. During preparation, you must resist the temptation to shortcut the process. It is possible to force doors open through manipulation, compromise, or impatience. But what you obtain without preparation can become a burden you are not ready to carry. When God opens a door, you will have the strength, wisdom, and stability to walk through it with confidence. When you open it yourself prematurely, you may find yourself overwhelmed. Preparation is not only about skill, it is about spirit. God is less concerned with your resume and more concerned with your resilience. He is less focused on your talent and more focused on your trust. He shapes your response to criticism, your attitude in adversity, and your humility in success. These inner quality CE determine whether promotion will elevate you or expose you. Well, rights, the perspective shifts. As you embrace the preparation season, your perspective shifts. Instead of asking, when will this change? You begin asking, what is God teaching me here? Instead of resenting the delay, you lean into the development. You understand that every task, every challenge, every responsibility is shaping you for something greater. You begin to see that the preparation itself is evidence that promotion is coming. There will come a moment when what God has been developing in private becomes visible in public. The strength you gained in obscurity will sustain you in visibility. The discipline you formed in routine will support you in responsibility. The humility you learned in waiting will protect you in success. And when that promotion arrives, it will not feel overwhelming because you will recognize that you have been prepared for it all along. So remain faithful where you are. Do not despise small beginnings. Do not grow weary in repetition. Every unseen act of obedience is building a platform for future impact. Every quiet moment of trust is strengthening your foundation. God does not waste a single season. If you are in preparation, it is because He is planning promotion. And when the time is right, what He has been shaping within you will carry you into the greater things He has already designed for your life. Faith is most clearly revealed not when everything makes sense, but when it does not. It is easy to declare trust in God when prayers are answered quickly and circumstances align with our desires. It is much harder to remain confident when the path ahead is unclear, when the waiting stretches longer than expected, and when the silence feels heavy. Yet it is in those very moments that genuine faith is formed. Faith requires trust in God's timing, even when His timing does not match your own. We live in a world that values immediacy. We are accustomed to quick responses, instant results, and rapid solutions. When something is delayed, we assume something is wrong. That mindset can quietly shape the way we view God. If He does not answer immediately, we may question whether He heard us. If the breakthrough does not come on our schedule, we may wonder whether it is coming at all. But God is not governed by urgency. He is guided by wisdom. God's timing is not random, and it is never careless. He sees the full landscape of your life, the relationships, the opportunities, the unseen dangers, and the future consequences of present decisions. What you perceive as a delay may actually be divine protection. What feels like postponement may be preparation for a greater outcome. Trusting His timing means believing that He knows not only what to give you, but when to give it. One of the greatest challenges in trusting God's timing is releasing control. We naturally want to manage outcomes. We try to calculate possibilities, anticipate obstacles, and arrange solutions. While responsibility and planning have their place, there is a line between stewardship and striving. When anxiety begins to dominate your thoughts and impatience shapes your decisions, it may be a sign that you are attempting to carry what belongs to God. Trusting God's timing does not mean passivity. It does not mean doing nothing and calling it faith. It means actively obeying what He has already shown you while leaving the results in His hands. It means continuing to pray even when the answer is delayed. It means maintaining integrity even when compromise seems to offer quicker rewards. It means choosing peak. E over panic because you are confident that God is working behind the scenes. There are seasons when God seems silent, prayers are offered, tears are shed, and yet there is no visible response. Silence can be unsettling. It can tempt you to assume that nothing is happening, but silence is not the same as absence. A teacher may be silent during a test, not because she is uninterested, but because the test itself is part of the learning process. In the same way, God's silence can be an invitation to deeper trust. Faith grows strongest in these quiet spaces when there are no immediate signs, no dramatic confirmations, no sudden changes. You are faced with a choice. Will you continue to trust His character? Faith anchors itself not in visible evidence, but in the nature of God. If He is faithful, then He will remain faithful. If He is wise, then His timing is wise. If He is loving, then His delays are not cruel. Impatience often leads to premature decisions. When we grow tired of waiting, we may attempt to create our own solutions. We may force doors open that God has not opened. We may accept opportunities that look appealing but are misaligned with His will. Acting ahead of His timing can lead to unnecessary complications. Trusting His timing protects you from stepping into situations you are not ready for or that are not meant for you. There is also a refining work that takes place in the waiting. Waiting exposes what we truly believe. Do we trust God only when outcomes are favorable, or do we trust Him when circumstances are uncertain? Do we believe that He is good, even when we do not understand His ways? Waiting stretches your faith. It deepens your dependence. It teaches you to lean not on your own understanding, but on His greater perspective. When you look back on your life, you may see moments when you were grateful that God did not answer a prayer as quickly as you desired. Opportunities you once pursued may have led to paths that were not best for you. Relationships you once fought to maintain may have hindered your growth. At the time, the delay felt painful. Later, it became clear that the timing was perfect. Reflection often reveals the wisdom that was hidden in the waiting. Trusting God's timing also frees you from comparison. It is easy to look at others and feel as though they are moving ahead while you remain still. But each life unfolds according to a unique design. What appears to be acceleration in someone else's journey may not be appropriate for yours. God knows what you need and when you need it. His timing for you is tailored to your calling, your capacity, and your future. Peace becomes possible when you accept that you are not responsible for orchestrating every detail. Your role is faithfulness. His role is fulfillment. As you continue to obey, pray, and trust, you can rest in the assurance that nothing is late in God's plan. What He has promised, He will accomplish. What He has begun, He will complete. And when the moment arrives, when the answer comes, when the door opens, when the breakthrough appears, you will see that every second of waiting was woven into a timing more perfect than you could have arranged on your own. There is something transformative about living with expectation. Not wishful thinking, not blind optimism, but a settled confidence that God is able and willing to do more than you can currently imagine. When you truly believe that God intends to exceed your expectations, your perspective shifts. You no longer approach life with quiet resignation. You begin to walk with hopeful anticipation. You stop bracing for disappointment and start positioning your heart for possibility. Many people unknowingly limit what they expect from God. Past disappointments, unanswered prayers, and prolonged delays can slowly shrink their vision. They begin to pray small prayers, believe for minimal change, and settle for survival instead of breakthrough. This quiet settling is not humility. It is often fear disguised as caution. You protect your heart by lowering your expectations, thinking that if you expect less, you will hurt less. But God is not honored by small expectations rooted in fear. He is honored by bold faith, rooted in trust. To expect God to exceed your imagination does not mean demanding specific outcomes. It means believing that His plans are greater than your preferences. Sometimes we become so attached to our version of the blessing that we fail to recognize a better one when it appears. True expectancy leaves room for surprise. It says, Lord, I trust you to do what is best, even if it looks different than I envisioned. When you live with this kind of expectancy, your prayers change. They become less about control and more about surrender. You begin to ask God to accomplish His will in ways that surpass your limited understanding. You pray not only for provision, but for purpose. Not only for open doors, but for discernment. To walk through the right ones, your faith stretches beyond the boundaries of what seems reasonable and rests in what is possible with Him. Expectancy also shapes your attitude in daily life. Instead of waking up burdened by dread or monotony, you rise with the awareness that God may move in unexpected ways. You become more attentive to opportunities. You notice small blessings that once went overlooked. Gratitude grows because you are aware that every good gift is evidence of His care. Even challenges are viewed differently. Rather than seeing them solely as obstacles, you consider that they may be part of a larger design. It is important to understand that God's exceeding blessings are not always material or visible. Sometimes the greatest surprises come in the form of inner transformation, a peace you did not think possible, a forgiveness you never believed you could extend, a strength that carries you through what once would have crushed you. These inner victories are powerful reminders that God's work is not limited to outward circumstances. There will be moments when expecting more feels risky. You may fear being disappointed again. You may hesitate to hope too boldly. But hope anchored in God's character is never wasted. Even if the outcome differs from your imagination, His goodness remains. Expectancy is not about guaranteeing a specific result. It is about trusting that whatever He does will ultimately reflect His wisdom and love. Expectancy also requires obedience. When God prompts you to take a step of faith, you must respond. Expecting Him to move does not eliminate your responsibility to act. Sometimes the blessing unfolds as you step forward in trust. You may not see the entire path, but as you take one step, the next becomes clearer. Expectancy keeps you ready. It keeps your heart aligned and your spirit sensitive. Another important aspect of expecting God to exceed your imagination is refusing to define your future by your past. Past failures, mistakes, and setbacks can whisper that you are disqualified from greater things, but God's grace rewrites narratives. He is not limited by your history. What you once saw as the end may have been the beginning of a deeper preparation. When you believe that He can do more than you imagine, you allow Him to redeem what seemed lost. Expectancy also guards against complacency. When you truly believe that greater things are possible, you do not settle for mediocrity. You continue growing, learning, and trusting. You remain spiritually engaged. You refuse to let routine dull your awareness of His presence. Every day becomes an opportunity for Him to reveal His faithfulness in new ways. At times, the fulfillment of God's exceeding blessing may come gradually rather than suddenly. It may unfold step by step, layer by layer. Do not overlook gradual growth because it lacks drama. A steady increase can be just as miraculous as a sudden breakthrough. Sometimes what appears ordinary in the moment becomes extraordinary when viewed over time. As you cultivate a heart of expectancy, you align yourself with possibility rather than limitation. You choose to believe that God is not finished, not restricted, not hindered by what you see. You recognize that his reserve fall, ours are infinite, his creativity unmatched, and his timing perfect. This confidence does not produce arrogance. It produces humility and gratitude. You understand that whatever he does, it is by grace. And when he moves, when the door opens, when the prayer is answered, when the unexpected blessing arrives, you will realize that even your boldest hopes were smaller than his design. What you imagined was good, but what he prepared was better. What you anticipated was meaningful, but what he accomplished was lasting. And in that moment, your faith will expand, your gratitude will deepen, and your trust in his ability to exceed your imagination will become unshakable. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on everything we have considered, the unseen work of God, the necessity of preparation, the discipline of trusting his timing, and the power of living with bold expectancy, one truth rises above it all. God is faithful in every season. He is faithful when you cannot see movement. He is faithful when you are being shaped in obscurity. He is faithful when the answer feels delayed. And he is faithful when the blessing finally arrives in ways greater than you imagined. Every hidden moment has purpose. Every preparation season has meaning. Every delay carries wisdom. And every promise rests on a foundation that cannot be shaken. What feels uncertain to you is already secure in his hands. What feels unfinished to you is already part of a completed design in his plan. You are not wandering aimlessly. You are walking through a process that has been carefully orchestrated by a loving and sovereign God. Do not underestimate what he is doing right now. Even in silence, he is speaking through circumstances. Even in stillness, he is arranging what is ahead. Even in weakness, he is building strength within you. The very areas where you feel stretched may be the exact areas where he intends to bless you most. The very place where you feel delayed may be the doorway to something far greater than you requested. You have not been forgotten. You have not been overlooked. And you have certainly not been abandoned. The God who began a good work in you is committed to completing it. He wastes nothing, not your tears, not your prayers, not your obedience, not even your disappointments. He weaves them all together into a testimony that will one day strengthen not only your faith, but the faith of others. So stand firm, remain faithful. Keep trusting when you cannot trace his hand. Keep obeying when the path feels unclear. Keep believing when the circumstances attempt to contradict the promise, because what is ahead of you is not limited by what is behind you. Your past does not define your potential, and your present does not confine your future. There is more in store than you can currently comprehend. More growth, more clarity, more impact, more blessing. And when the moment comes, when God reveals what he has been preparing all along, you will understand that every step of waiting, every season of refining, and every lesson of trust was leading you towards something far beyond your imagination. God is about to surprise you beyond your imagination, and when he does, you will know without a doubt that he was working all along.